Yeah, there we go. Good evening, students, family, and guests. Welcome to UMW. We're happy to have you as admitted students and guests joining us this evening. We are in meeting mode of Zoom, and this session is being recorded. If you do not want to be seen or heard, please turn off your video and mute your microphone. You may enter your questions in the chat box, and we will be leaving time at the end of this meeting to answer your questions. Thank you. So I am Kelly Slunt. I am the director of the honors program. I'm also joined on this call by Mara Scanlon, the associate director of the honors program. And I'm going to do a brief overview of the program, and then we're going to open up the time at the end for information or question and answer time. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our program. So the UMW program is designed to, as this slide says, provide an intellectual home for high achieving scholars. We have designed it so that we provide opportunities in which our students can excel in their academics, but also develop themselves as leaders and as servants. And our students come from all three colleges of the university and can pretty much major in everything at the university except for the nursing program. The nursing program is too rigid in terms of its requirements to allow for a student to add the honors program. And we do, as a staff, try to provide opportunities to develop our scholars into their future plans. Students always want to know what are the perks for being as part of the honors program. Beginning in the spring semester of your first year, you would receive priority registration. At Mary Washington, students register for courses based on the number of credits completed. And so therefore, first year students would have a very low number of completed credits in their first year. So this becomes a very welcome perk to be able to register prior to those that have large number of credits. And this is also enables you to make sure that you can meet the honors course requirements. Pre-pandemic, we offered exclusive field trips, and we hope to resume those next year. In the past, we have done a number of different field trips, such as going to see performances in DC, or going to educational hikes of local preserves. And then we do still offer programming for students as well. This semester, this academic year, they've all been virtual. We have a small honors commons that's located in Lee Hall, adjacent to the bookstore. It's in a really great central location for campus. And in this space, as we'll show you some photos later, I believe I have a photo in here later, you will be able to see, but this space has a common area where students can interact. We also have kind of a conference table that students can also interact or do some studying. And then we have a computer lounge that is more for quiet studying, and we do offer free printing in there. We also do have a small kitchenette that we try to provide hot beverages in. Again, this is something that has not been accessible to our students due to the pandemic. And we've had limited access to the commons. We again hope to have that open more in the fall. Each student at Mary Washington is advised during their first year by their first year seminar instructor. And then once they declare a major, they receive a major advisor within that department of interest. And the honors program staff, Dr. Scanlon and myself, are also available. We are listed as program directors in Banner, which is our a system that we use at Mary Washington. And we are available for academic advising. And we will remain with students for their time that they are at Mary Washington as a supplemental advisor. We also have an articulation agreement with GW School of Medicine. This program is a program that GW has with 10 other schools in the nation, in which students can apply for early acceptance or early consideration. And this program is students apply in March of their sophomore year. And if they are accepted at that point in time, after submitting a written application and going through an interview process, they then are required to complete the MCAT. If they finish the MCAT, all required courses, keep up their GPA to a 3.6 and do clinical, they will be admitted to GW School of Medicine after 4 years of study. So this program is designed for students who intend to stay at Mary Washington for 4 years. One other thing is students in this program must have a humanities major or minor. We do not have any other articulation agreements that are specifically tied to the honors program. There are several other programs on campus that honors students may take advantage of, such as our articulation agreement with George Mason School of Law, as well as one with Shenandoah for the School of Pharmacy. We have a early arrival program that we did 2 years in a row prior to the pandemic. Last year, we were unable to do this. And this is called City as Text. It's based on an honors pedagogy in which one reads a landscape or a location as if one was reading a text or reading a book. And we have now, this was so successful and it helped us to build cohort relationships between our honors students. We have now transformed this into a course. And so this course has an early arrival component. Students will arrive on campus on the 15th. And they will do some early arrival programming, getting to know the Fredericksburg area, hearing hopefully from representatives from our Fredericksburg community, exploring the local museum and going on some tours. And then we'll have a course every Monday evening for the first half of the semester. And within that course, students will learn about ethnographic research, how to read a city. They'll hear lectures from one of our historic preservation, urban planning experts, as well as receive some training on implicit biases and how one might misinterpret people and a landscape. And then students will spend a 3 to 4 hour period with a small group of people going out into the city and looking at a designated area. And then this will conclude with a banquet on October 4th, in which the groups will give us information about their experience, about what their initial thoughts on Fredericksburg are. This is just some images of our field trips. The one on the left was when we were able to go up to DC for the launch of the novel, Dear Evan Hansen. We had read the play, Dear Evan Hansen, for our common read, and then it was converted to a novel, and we were able to go up to the novel launch, and actually Pashik and Paul, who wrote the musical, performed some of the songs from the musical, and then 2 of our students were actually able to go backstage. They won the lottery to go actually meet them. This is our field trip to where we went hiking to a preserve up in Stafford, and it was kind of a nature walk, but also a historic look at that forest. We've also done things like National Day on Writing, helping to support that, and students, we did a never-ending story, so students could come along and add a word to our story. Dr. Scanlon offers weekly meditation. Prior to the pandemic, we would meet at the Kaleidaker Center and all meditate together in a designated meditation space. This academic year, we've adapted that to Zoom platform, and it's a great opportunity to de-stress once a week and form some community building. Prior to the pandemic, I was able to host students at my home at lottery dinners. I live within walking distance of campus, and so students would come down and join Dr. Scanlon and I for dinner. We really do hope that, my husband and I do hope that we will be able to resume those dinners soon once the restrictions are lifted. At the end of the fall semester, we do a gingerbread decorating contest in which we all gather and again have some fun, de-stress, and try to design a gingerbread sculpture. And then again, as I said, we sponsor the weekly meditation. I also do in the fall a prep seminar that helps students prepare for medical school applications. And it isn't particularly geared towards that GW opportunity that we have, but it is open to all students who might be interested in pre-health. We also offer a number of professionalization opportunities, such as working with the Center for Career and Professional Development, looking at things like Handshake, and which is an online, it's almost like a LinkedIn for college students. We also can do resume workshops, things of that nature. We collaborate with them. We've also collaborated with the Office of Disability Resources to offer Accessibility 101 training so that students could put this on their resume and indicating, you know, that they have received this training and that they are starting to think about how to make the world a more accessible and inclusive place. We also have offered safe zone training as well. So there's a number of different things in which, again, we try to expose our students to ways that they can further their own interests, but also perhaps prepare themselves for entering the professional world through undergoing some of these trainings. The honors program requirements. All students are required to take the City as Text course. You are then required to complete 12 credits of honors designated coursework. Now, these 12 credits are not next semester when you come into Mary Washington. They are over your time that you are at Mary Washington. But we do expect that you are completing a minimum of 2 requirements per academic year. And that's partly so that we can justify giving you priority registration, is that showing that you are making progress towards those requirements. The honors designated coursework could include an honors designated first year seminar. This is the first year where we will not require students to take an honors designated first year seminar. That's because we are now requiring the City as Text course. We'll also take honor service learning. Students typically do this in their sophomore year. And then finally, there is a capstone project with some other requirements that go along with leadership, capstone prep, and co-curricular. Oops, that is not for this time. I forgot to take that out. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Scanlon. One of the things I forgot before I introduced Dr. Scanlon, I forgot to say, I am also, I have a long-time affiliation with the university. I am an alum of Mary Washington, graduating in '91 with my chemistry degree. And then I was fortunate to return to the faculty in '95 after earning my PhD. And I have been a professor of chemistry since that time. And then was fortunate to be asked to direct the honors program. So now I'll have Dr. Scanlon briefly introduce herself, and then we'll open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Hi all, thanks for coming tonight. I have also been at Mary Washington for a long time. I started in the fall of 1999. I'm an English professor. So Dr. Slentz and I joke and yet are quite serious about the fact that together we sort of make up one brain. We've got left and right parts of the brain pretty well balanced here. So while Dr. Slunt is the founding director of the honors program and has been seeing it since it started at UMW, I was lucky enough to join it just a few years ago, and my role has kind of changed over the last few years. And together with a little more staff, we've been able to really shift our programming and are very happy in our new space that Dr. Slunt talked about and so on. So the program has actually seen a lot of exciting changes in the last few years that have built on the longer history that it's had at UMW. And we're happy to tell you guys if anybody has questions about how it is similar or different than some other honors programs in the Commonwealth or other places. We're happy to try to explain that a little bit to you. And to talk about UMW more broadly, if you're just in general trying to decide about where you're headed next fall. We've both been here a long time. We both live in the city. We both have children about your age. And so we have a lot of experience and opinions about this. So before I go on anymore, can I ask if there's anybody who wants to ask a question? You can use the raise hand feature. You can just unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. So we have a couple things in the chat. And the first one is roughly how many students are in the honors program? It's a great question. Right now we have probably just a bit over 350 students in the honors program, and we anticipate that we'll have maybe 70 to 75 incoming students next fall joining the honors program. It's both big enough to have a lot of diversity in it and small enough, especially per class, that we have found students building some really strong relationships in it. Kelly, the next question, if you want to address it, if someone was not able to get in during their freshman year, is there another way to apply?
Sure, and that's also related to, I received a private message too that also says, you know, how do future freshmen enter the honors program? So I will answer both of those together. So the Office of Admissions handles the selection of students for the honors program directly from high school. And those would be from your Common App. You would have selected on there that you were interested in the honors program, and then they look at a very holistic review. And then in terms of if you were unable to be selected in that selection, we do offer one other opportunity to enter the honors program, and we call that Track B. And that track of students applies in February of their freshman year, of their first year at Mary Washington. And the application includes an essay, as well as a letter of recommendation from a UMW faculty member. And what we do encourage students to do, it's not required, but it is highly encouraged, is that sometime during your first year at Mary Washington, take an honors designated course. One of the options could be is to do the honors designated first year seminars, or you could look for some of the other courses when you register for classes in the spring semester that are honors designated. So I hope that that helps to answer your question.
One of the next questions picks up on something I offered, and that's the question, how does the UMW program compare to programs specifically here at Christopher Newport and James Madison? And, you know, Dr. Slunt and I have colleagues and friends at both of those schools, but they each do offer something a little bit different. So, one of the things that differentiates Mary Washington's honors programs from many of the others in the Commonwealth is that it is what a faculty member might call an across the curriculum program. So what that means is that at many other schools, including at Christopher Newport, and actually at for some of the honor students at James Madison is a little bit different altogether because it's an honors college and it offers a whole bunch of different tracks, some of which are kind of full-blown honors and some of which are sort of a lighter system. But they have these kind of honors seminars that each honor student participates in, either in addition to their general education and other requirements, or like at Christopher Newport, I believe they replace general education courses in these interdisciplinary seminars. We have some requirements that are based in the honors program. Cydia's text, somebody else asked, is that a required freshman year class? And the answer is yes. If you're coming in as an honors student in the fall, you will be enrolled in that 1 credit class. It will meet once a week in addition to the pre-arrival component. But most of the credits that people take in honors are in what we call honors designated classes. And that means it could be an honors psychology class, an honors English class, honors biology, honors religion, honors music. So these courses are offered by faculty all across Mary Washington. And in a minute, I'll let Dr. Slunt talk about what differentiates honors from non-honors, because I see that's another question that we got up. So you fulfill your honors designated classes usually while you are fulfilling either your general education requirements or your major requirements. Or sometimes we have students who just take a class because it's honors designated and they end up finding something they never knew about, we're really interested in. A really good example of that is that one of our really popular professors teaches honor sections of Linguistics 101. Usually in the fall semester, and people who don't even have any idea what linguistics is sometimes put themselves in it to fulfill a gen ed and to get an honors requirement. They end up being really, really fascinated. A number of our students have actually become linguistics minors because they were really inspired by what they learned in that class. I think that all of those honors programs will offer an emphasis on having a relationship to the honors advisors. Probably all of them have some kind of priority registration. That's a very common element of most honors programs. But one of the primary differences would be that across the curriculum rather than the honors seminar. One other difference I'll note is that many of the honors programs in the Commonwealth, for instance, have their first year students who come in as honor students, and sometimes upper class also, reside together in a particular dorm. The honor students at Mary Wash have repeatedly asserted that they would like to be integrated into the larger UMW community. And so sometimes there will be other honor students on your hall or as your roommate or whatever, just potentially by chance or because of the FSM you signed up for. But we do not have a designated honors dorm. And in fact, we often welcome, when we're able to, we welcome friends and other people to some of our programs. There are some non-honors people who do meditation with us. Sometimes they come build gingerbread houses or other things. And students who aren't in the honors program are allowed to access honors classes as long as there are seats for them, because they may prefer the kind of teaching and learning that takes place in those classes. And so as long as they're able to get a seat, they're very welcome to join that class. Maybe I'll let Dr. Slunt talk a little bit about how those classes look.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think that's one of the big things I wanted to differentiate is that our honors courses don't have to only be composed of honors students. And I really do also think that helps with how we try to, as much as possible, integrate these opportunities across campus. And so an honors designated course needs to have differentiated learning. And one of the things that Dr. Scanlon and I frequently hear when we do admissions events is, I am tired after high school of doing all of these AP, IB extra stuff, like that we hear that in a lot of these courses, you oftentimes just have extra work. Well, one of the things that differentiates, I think, our honors program from some other honors programs, because I've talked to other directors, is an honors course at Mary Washington does not mean extra work. It means differentiated learning. It means differentiated work. It means something has been changed intentionally about the course to raise perhaps the level of engagement with the material or the depth at which a faculty member is talking about it. You may be going into deeper concepts. You may have more challenging conversations, but you're not taking a class and adding a 15-page paper to it to make it honors, which we have seen at other institutions. And so what an honors course can look like is, for example, I teach honors organic chemistry. And I know that sounds really scary as it is. I mean, organic is scary enough, but my lecture component of the course is pretty much identical. And in fact, a few years ago, I taught non-honors organic so that one of my other colleagues could have a chance to teach the honors scholars. And my lecture was identical both of those years. The difference is in the laboratory. The students do different experiments in the laboratory. They get to use higher instruments. So like we go upstairs and use the instruments that are normally used by juniors and seniors, but they get to use them earlier in their career. Honors Spanish courses, for example, rather than doing some of the routine language homework, the students go to the local elementary schools and help with the ESL classrooms and practice their Spanish in a practical situation. And maybe perhaps Dr. Scanlon could talk a little bit about how she adapted her English course too.
Sure, I'm happy to. And I see we have a question. Is there a cap on the class size? And the answer to that is yes. Honors classes would usually be capped at 20 to 25 students. Now, because Mary Wash is a school that works to get pretty small class sizes a lot of the time, you may have other classes of that size, but you would never have, say, a 40 or even 70 person lecture. Obviously, if you're thinking about JMU, VCU, or one of the UVA, one of the larger schools, you may be talking about lectures of multiple hundreds of people, but that would be pretty unheard of at Mary Wash. But you would have a smaller class, and that's because it's a real emphasis on interaction between the students and faculty member, rather than, say, a traditional you sit and take notes and answer questions on an exam. We often try to stress that honors classes might be more student directed. They might be able to help choose some of the projects or have a lot of choices in terms of how they're going to define their research in the class. Some professors even have students kind of help design the grading scheme for the class. In my classes, the classes I have that are honors are very interdisciplinary, and that's true of a lot of honors classes around campus. For instance, we have a new one starting next fall that's called a Religion in America Before the Civil War, right? So you can see that it's going to take up issues of religion and history and probably geography also. I have a class called Literature of the Great War of World War I that is both literature, history, some geography. It's a women's and gender studies class. It takes up, there's a whole bunch of things that kind of come together in that. And so in a regular class, possibly I would do something, especially at a lower level class, like give a quiz at the start of the class to make sure everybody had done their reading. I would never do that in an honors class. I'd assume that the students there had done their reading, and instead I would redirect those points into something more interesting, active, or in depth with the students. One student has asked, is there a way to change your FSEM to an honors one if you've already done your deposit and filled out your preference sheet? And the answer is yes. Kelly, do you want to say how to do that?
So I'm going to put in the chat Dr. Wynn's email. So Dr. April Wynn is our director of the first year seminar. And what I would ask is that you email her, and then she will work with Wes Hilliard, who is in academic services, to get your first year seminar changed, because she's the one who actually is responsible for assigning you to your first year seminar. And related to that, even though we're not no one asked that question, but I thought it would be nice to elaborate on that. So once you pay your deposit at Mary Washington, you will receive a first year student questionnaire. And that questionnaire is going to ask you a number of questions like, what are your top 5 first year seminar choices? What's your possible major? What are your interests? Do you have any AP or IB credit or dual enrollment credit that we should consider? You'll pick some classes from our gen ed courses. And then what will happen is that Dr. Scanlon and I will get a list of all of the deposited honor scholars, and then we will take that schedule once your FSEM's already been assigned, and we will assign you to the rest of the courses for your schedule. So for example, if I was working with somebody who was interested in chemistry, after they've completed their chemistry placement test, I would enroll them in a chemistry course. I would probably look at and see if they need calculus, because that's required for the major. And then I would pick 1 or 2 gen ed courses in their interests. If they're interested in medicine, I may put you in psychology because that's required for medical school. If you're interested in elementary ed, I would put you in the linguistics course that Dr. Scanlon talked about, especially the honors version if it's being offered, so that we can get you an additional honors course. And then in statistics, perhaps, because that's also required for elementary ed. So hopefully you can see that we will help to design your schedule a little bit. And then you want to add something?
I was just going to say that one of the things Dr. Slunt said there, but just to make sure you didn't miss it, because I see we have a question: would it be difficult to get your honors credits if you don't take an honors FSEM? And I think the answer is no. The honors FSEM gives you an easy way to get 3 of those 12 credits because you have to take an FSEM anyway. But a number of the classes that Dr. Slunt just mentioned that we might put people in based on their interests very frequently have honors sections. We have an intro to psych honors class. We have a statistics honors class. We have the linguistics honors class. So if we're building your schedules and you are an honors student, we're likely to try to make sure you have at least 1 honors class in your schedule for the fall that hopefully will do something else for you. It's writing intensive, or it fulfills a gen ed, or it might be a class in the major that you're thinking about. If there's anybody on the call who has been accepted to UMW but not been accepted to the honors program, but is interested in applying in your second semester, track B, as Dr. Slunt was describing, I would really encourage you to sign up for an honors FSEM, or make clear that you hope to get at least 1 other honors class in your fall semester. It will give you a chance to try out what the classes are like when you apply. It's always a good thing to be able to say, look, I got an A- in an honors class, and that shows that I can, I'm ready to take on that kind of learning atmosphere or those learning challenges. And so I would encourage you to look for the honors FSEMs. You can see them on the FSEM website, which ones are honors. I have 2 sections of honors FSEM, and there's at least 8 more of them, I think, across all kinds of different science and history and other fields. Or again, to make a notation in the kind of open section on your first year questionnaire that says you hope to apply track B and you would like to take at least 1 honors designated class if possible. If somehow you don't get in one, you might want to choose one then for the following spring, if you're able to register that way.
And I saw another question that came in just to me. Do honor students have priority access to work study programs? And that's a really good question. Dr. Scanlon and I do not control the work study that's associated with financial aid. And I would say that any student who has work study, is accommodated through things at Mary Washington, but we do not prioritize that because it's out of our purview of control. Now,
nor do we have any control over the scholarships, or we have no control over money, basically, that you're offered by the school. A lot of honor students do have jobs on campus and off campus.
And we do have a few paid positions through the honors program as well that you could, eventually look for as opportunities, but they are not what falls under the formalized work study programs. And that would be financial aid that could help you with that.
Just while people are kind of wondering about finishing the honors credits, I would just kind of sketch out that most people say you're going to take the full 4 years to finish, which would be, the kind of average thing. So one thing that I know that many people on the call may already have credits from dual enrollment or AP, but I also know some of those things have been really disrupted by the pandemic, and maybe you didn't leave high school with as many credits as you had hoped to have under your belt. Even if you came in with 0 credits already, as long as you took 15 credits every semester, which is to say usually five classes. Sometimes you'll have a lab class or something else with that carries a higher credit load. But if you took 15 credits a semester, every semester, you would finish in 4 years without ever doing an overload or ever taking summer school. Okay, that's how you progress through school. Now, a lot of people end up picking up extra credits along the way. For instance, if you come in as an honor student, you get 1 extra credit for CITES text. You get another one for doing your honor service learning. You have to take a lab science. Everybody takes a lab science at one point, which means they have another credit there. So they do, you take a phys ed class, you take a choral class. There's a bunch of ways that those individual credits can also add up so that it's not necessarily individual classes. Most honor scholars complete their 12 HN designated credits within, say, their first 5 semesters, which is to say freshman year, sophomore year, maybe a little bit into junior year. Most people are done with them by then. They don't have to be. As long as you're done by the time you graduate, it's okay. But they at that point begin to turn more toward fulfilling a leadership requirement, preparing for their capstone project, and the capstone project is completed by everyone in one of their final semesters, usually in the fall or spring of their senior year. So they begin to turn towards some of those less clearly defined requirements than the kind of check boxes of the 12 credits. But unless someone has 3 majors and another minor and is trying to do something else, we've never seen anyone not able to get the courses they need in addition to their other stuff and graduate on time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Dr. Scanlon mentioned earlier, we try very hard, especially in your first year when we're advising you, to find ways that it can overlap. If there's a gen ed course, try to overlap those so that you can look at those things. We had a great question about examples of a capstone project. And so I'll give a few and maybe Dr. Scanlon can think of some. So the capstone is designed to be either a research or creative project. It can overlap with your major or your minor or both. Or neither. And so we have currently, we've had examples of students who are doing, if you're in the sciences, it's often research. So students are working with a faculty member to look at a research question, a research problem. We have some students who are, under my direction, they often work on helping me with the United States Chemistry Olympiad projects, but we've also had students working with some of my colleagues in the chemistry department on program cell death, let's say, for example. But I'm currently working with a student who is working with one of the administrators on campus. This student's been very active in student life and is looking at enhancing the smoking policy for UMW and looking at what are all the regulations in the Commonwealth and what's being done at other institutions and how might those policies influence UMW's policy. And he's a political science major interested in law school. So you can see overlap there, but he's also very involved in student government. So he's overlapped it. One of my other favorite ones is one of our students in the past was a business major, but she was a Arabic minor. And she really wanted to look at the Arabic. So she looked at how has the Arabic language changed as it evolved into the Urdu language. And so what does a word in Arabic that it has the same characters, so the same written language in Urdu, but it means something different in Urdu. So, she was able to do that. So those are a few examples of capstone projects.
I'll give a few from the humanities too. In the social sciences and humanities, we do often see kind of traditional research papers. I'm going to look at this particular political problem. I'm going to look at patterns of Republican women voters in the state of Virginia in the 2016 election, for instance, right? And gathering data, analyzing it, or doing projects in psychology, say with active subjects, surveys, interviews, etc. We had a student this year who's actually a chemistry major who decided to do a project on what women in chemistry across several decades at UMW have done with their lives, how many of them have stayed in the field, what kind of barriers they faced, and so on. In English, we might see things from this semester. We have a student who is also a co-major in women's and gender studies, who noted that in dystopian fiction, very, very popular young adult fiction style now, that women's, the way she defined it, I saw her present on it recently, that women's suffering, she felt, was often kind of fetishized, right? That it was something that, even though it wasn't like everybody said, hooray, this woman's suffering, but they kind of dwelled on it in a way that made her uncomfortable. And she's a creative writing major, and she's decided to write a dystopian fiction novel. She wrote several chapters of it this semester, in which she handled the issue of women's suffering in different ways. Sometimes our education students do projects related to education and their major. Last semester, a senior did a project who's an elementary ed student. She did a project on representations of disability in picture books for children. And in addition to doing a research paper on it, she's made an outward facing website for use as a resource by other teachers, with information on a number of picture books, what's good and bad about them, how you might present them in your class. Sometimes we see other kind of applied projects like that. A student in environmental science a couple of years ago was studying something about waste management in her home county, and her project was to create a document for the board of advisors for her county about waste management. So rather than a traditional paper, she wanted to do something quite different. And theater majors and other people, adapt it to their own major or minor or or sometimes that we see these interdisciplinary projects also. So it's really quite flexible to where, one of the things I reassure students all the time is, by the time you get there, you're ready for it. It sounds sort of like now, oh, what am I going to do on my own for a whole semester? But they're self-designed and self-created projects monitored by a faculty member, and you earn 3 credits to, immerse yourself in something you're really interested in and that you'll be ready to do by the time you get there. And as far as honors is concerned, we're pretty happy to see where you take it.
So there's a question in the chat about the minority and humanities. That is not for the honors program. That is only if you intend to apply to GW School of Medicine through that early acceptance program. The GW wants the students to be holistic and well-rounded, and so their way of ensuring that, because a lot of pre-med students are science majors, is that they require this humanities minor, which, by the way, their definition of humanities is wrong anyways. It's pretty much just anything but science, some social sciences, and business. As long as you don't do those, they say it's a humanities.
But we have had students go with minors in music, a student applying now who is actually a double major in biochemistry and English. But as far as honors is concerned, you can major in anything you want besides nursing, and you can minor or not minor as you wish, or minor in several things as you wish. So we don't have any expectations that your studies fit a specific template. Any other questions, you guys?
Oh, would you go through admissions to change your minor? Actually, no. So what would happen is, in terms of what I would suggest, if there are some classes that you might want to take in a minor, if you have not submitted your first year questionnaire, put that information there. And if not, it's something that you can talk with your advisor about. No one formally declares a major or even a minor at Mary Washington until you've earned at least 28 credits. And so generally, it's not even until the second semester that you're at Mary Washington that you're going through that formal declaration process. And at that point in time, it's no longer through admissions, it's actually through the office of the registrar by that point in time. But right now, no need to do anything, no stress about anything, but you could put that on your first year questionnaire Or if you've already submitted your first year questionnaire and you're in the honors program, you've already submitted, you could shoot an email to either Dr. Scanlon or I, or actually better off, send it to honorsprogram@umw.edu. And when we're designing your first semester schedule, we would keep that in mind.
I just put that.
It says EDI.
I have a typo in it, of course, because I actually don't know how to type, which is an issue. But the umw.edu. Okay. Oh, now that one has a comma. See, you guys, I'm just proving it. I type with my 2 middle fingers. I'm sorry. I'm usually better than that, but okay. So honorsprogram@umw.edu is how you can reach me, Dr. Slant, and our program coordinator all at once. And it's not a black hole. We see those emails, we answer those emails. It doesn't, it's not a form that like you're never going to hear from anybody again. Something you may know, and Dr. Sloan has sort of indicated it already, is that after you're put into all your classes, probably through the month of June, you'll be having a one-on-one meeting with an advisor, very possibly the person who's teaching your FSEM, who will be your academic advisor for your first year. But if that person isn't able to do advising this summer, then it will be another faculty member that will meet with you one-on-one to talk through what you've been registered for, help you figure out if there are things you want to change in it or you want to keep the schedule you've been given. And if you're in the honors program, then Dr. Slunt and I will also be holding a couple of informational meetings before those meetings, just to kind of reiterate some of these things, remind people what they'll want to discuss with folks when they get into the one-on-one advising meetings. So that you're not on your own at all through the summer. There's lots of ways to give input on your schedule, and in fact, to adjust your schedule. Your schedule may not be complete until the first week of classes if you're doing some add dropping and so on, and that's okay. Somebody asked if, Kelly, do you know where this recording is going to be with admissions, but do you know how they make it available?
I have no idea because this is not our Zoom account, it's admissions Zoom account, but we can try to follow up. What I would do is actually, could you do me a favor? If you are someone who wants access to this, send that email to that, honors program.
I'm going to try it
umw.edu, and then we will ensure that you get a copy of a recording.
I got it right this time.
Yes. The question about when do you start registering for courses? So actually, I guess you could change your schedule after you have a meeting with your academic advisor, which will be sometime in June. Now, July, sorry. When you actually start to register for classes entirely on your, not on your own, but like where you build your entire schedule, will not be until November for the spring.
So what happens for the first semester, just to reiterate for some confusion about that, is that you're going to give as much guidance as you can on the first year questionnaire, which you're allowed to access as soon as you've made your deposit to commit to Mary Washington. Then they send you the questionnaire and you rank your FSEMs and you show other classes you're interested in. Now those classes aren't absolute guarantees because sometimes the sections fill differently or things are offered at the same time and conflict with each other. But we use them as guidelines, or sometimes just to say, okay, this person indicated, say, 3 different classes in poli-sci that aren't possible for their schedule, but I could get them something else in poli-sci because clearly it's something they're kind of interested in. So if you're in the honors program, your schedule will be built by me or Dr. Slant. If you're not in the honors program, your schedule will be built by somebody in academic services, which is our kind of, Dr. Slant and I will be working in collaboration with them to build schedules. So you will get your 15 or 16 or 14 or whatever it is credits already built out for you over the course of the summer. And then you'll work with an advisor to decide if you're going to stick with those or if there are changes that you want to make depending on what opens up, what still has seats in it. Maybe people begin to drop a class that you really want and you get that seat. So, but those things won't happen till later in the summer. So the initial schedule is actually going to be built by somebody else, but you can, as soon as you turn in your deposit, you get access to the stuff to begin to rank your choices.
Any other final questions? We just have about 9 more minutes, but if anybody else has any other questions, I really do appreciate all of your questions. You've had excellent questions tonight.
And obviously, if you think of one later, again, just use that honors program at UMW email. It will come to us, and we're happy to continue answering questions. As I said, not only have we been through this ourselves, but we have children close to your age. We know it's a really big decision and a stressful one, and just kind of figuring out how and when things are going to happen can be very overwhelming. We're really happy to support you as we can. One of the nice things about having these extra advisors in the honors program is you have 2 more people you can always reach out to who are going to help you navigate things like that. Just right before we got on here, I got an email from a first-year student who's not in English, not in anything, said, "Hey, Dr. Scanlon, I think I want to graduate early. Can I talk with you about how to map that out?" Absolutely. Here's how you make an appointment, right? So that's, it's nice to have an extra set of advisors, and we're happy to begin that process with you ASAP.
And we're also really hoping that next year we can reopen the Commons. Dr. Scanlon and I normally both have office hours within there. And, you know, I love it when students just pop by my office. They came in to print something, but then they just wanted to get a little bit of a quick advice, and it's nice.
Or get a popsicle or draw on the chalk wall or some other thing. It's a strange little rabbit warren of a place, but we like it a lot.
All right. Well, I think we're almost at our time. Thank you all again for all of your time. And I really do want to echo what Dr. Scanlon said. You know, this is a challenging time, a difficult time for you guys to make a decision. But if you have any questions that we can accept, you know, help you in any way with making your decision about Mary Washington, let us know. Or about wherever you are going to land.
For that matter, yeah. Thanks, you guys. You're free to go if you don't have any more questions, and we'll look forward, hopefully, to contact or being with you later, I guess.